Hey, Trailblazers. There's always been one stop between Houston and the Guadalupe Mountains that has mattered to me the most, and that's my stop at Mom's Kitchen Express in Van Horn, Texas. Over the years, I've told our hiking community about this little gym out in West Texas and to swing by when they're heading to the Guads for a wonderful meal. For me, it was always a joy to stop by and hear Mr. Espinosa saying, "Another one of your hikers stopped by for a meal." They had to close the restaurant down for a couple of years due to family needs, but there's some exciting news. Mom's Kitchen Express is open once again. Same wonderful recipes, and it still feels like home. And it still carries the legacy of the man who loved this land as much as we do. So if you're heading out to the Guadalupe Mountains or just passing through Van Horn, make sure you stop by for a meal and to tell them hi from the Trailblazing Texas podcast community. Mr. Espinosa, you were missed. Now on with the episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas Podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas Podcast. I am still your host, Jason, and coming to us all the way from Balmorhea State Park, we have Interpretive Ranger Emily. Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jason. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. I didn't know a lot about Balmorhea, and I've been to the Guads, 25 times. That's my heaven on earth. The listeners are probably tired of me talking about it, but I always see the sign to head over to Balmorhea, and I'm just like, nope, I'm on my way to the Guads. Man, I started doing research because I wanted to have you guys on, and what a spectacular park.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely going to dive into all the wonderful stories about the park, but before we do, as the listeners know and they love, and I'm not sure if you know, but we have a lightning round, and I don't know, the last 3 or 4 months started all the episodes with this. And these are surprise questions. You've not seen them. I promise they're not hard. That's happened one time with a family member. They were actually really, really hard, and I apologized. But so far, everybody's survived the lightning round. They've really enjoyed it. So are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
All right, let's do this. Early mornings or late sunsets at the spring?
I am an early morning girly, just as a person, but also especially since I started at Balmorhea, mainly because of the catfish. They get the zoomies really bad in the morning, and it's really cute.
Nice. All right, so what is your go-to spot in the park?
Oh, that's a fun one. I really love hanging out by San Solomon Cienega on the overlook out that way. There is just something really peaceful about being surrounded by the Phragmites. It's really cool.
Yes or no? If you could swim every day in the spring, would you?
No. No, it's cold in the winter.
Yeah, so that's the next question. What is the coldest you've ever seen the water?
So funny enough, the water never changes, the water temperature. It stays 72 to 74 degrees year round. What changes is the air temperature. So,
Okay.
jumping out of that water in January, count me out.
Yep.
Except for a polar plunge.
All right, I hear you. Favorite wildlife encounter in the park?
For that one, probably when we got to see Big Bertha. She's our largest Texas spiny soft-shelled turtle. She laid a gorgeous clutch of eggs this year, and kind of getting to witness that and see her just hide them so lovingly was so awesome.
So with that being said, if you had to pick one to spend the day with, would it be turtles, fish, or birds?
Huh. It's got to be a turtle moment for me. I absolutely love our turtles. We have two different kinds. We've got the Texas spiny softshell and we've got our red-eared sliders. And they really are the it girls of the park. They are so charismatic and just cool. They hang out and, they just sun themselves and have a fantastic day just sitting out on a rock. And that's the kind of energy that I have. So
All right. What is the most common question visitors ask you?
often I'll get asked, where is the spring? And that's a good question because it's kind of hard to tell whenever you're just looking at the pool itself, but it's actually right there. The pool is shaped like a V with a circle there at the connecting point. And in that little circle part, there are a couple different outlets where a single spring comes up out of the ground at. And so one of the most major ones, you can actually look down. It's kind of right in front of one of our diving boards. And you swim down to the bottom and you can see the sand dancing and bubbling up down there. It looks absolutely spectacular. So that's where the spring is.
How would you describe Balmorhea to someone who's never been?
I would describe it as an oasis. We've got this awesome little pocket in the desert. And just like you, people drive by it all the time. We get people who come in and say, oh, well, I had an extra day on my trip this year. We always drive past this place. We've never actually stopped. And then you get people who absolutely fall in love with it.
Favorite time of year in the park?
Right now, actually, kind of fall, October, fantastic time to be in the park. We've gotten through the summer crowds. The air is still nice and warm. It's still very pleasant swimming. And a lot of the time you'll see some really cool wildlife. Like we get monarch migrations through the park. And I just think October is kind of the it month.
All right, cool. One thing visitors should never skip when they come to the park.
The Ciénagas. Obviously, people come for the pool, and the pool is so cool. It's the world's largest spring-fed swimming pool by volume. And we have, just on the other side of the park, we have two gorgeous ciénagas, which are these desert wetlands. And we have two of only 40 of the active remaining ciénagas in the world. And they are so spectacular.
What the heck? Really?
Yeah.
All
More
right.
than just a pool.
All right. As we grew up, honesty is the best policy. Have you ever gone for a dip after hours? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right.
It was sanctioned. It was sanctioned.
All right. All right. What's the best sound in the park?
Ooh. I am a big sucker for a kingfisher or an American coot. Actually, American coot. Whenever you go over to the wetlands around this time, whenever the American coots come back in, what they do is whenever they're calling, and I'm not much of a birder, I'm not very advanced in that realm, but what I love is hearing when one coot will get started. And it's kind of like this, and it kind of sounds like they're laughing. And then you'll just hear all of the rest of them after that one starts going, it just sounds like they are having such a good time. And that's a fantastic sound.
So I had no idea about birding until I think it was Hannah with Choke Canyons. I think she's now down in Corpus. She was talking about the migrations and how popular the park was for these birds. So then I started paying attention. I'm about now with the new location, about 28 minutes from Trailhead 1 of the longest trail in Texas, and probably about 50-something minutes to the other end. So there's 14 trailheads, but it's Trailhead 1 through 15 because there's no Trailhead 5. And so I started paying attention to the sounds of the birds, and yeah, absolutely amazing. Got hooked. So we have a little bit of property behind the house. So I bought a bird feeder that had a camera, and for like 3 weeks it sat out there with nothing. And I'm like on the little mic of the bird feeder trying to call, here, birds, come on, birds. Nothing. I stopped that. Man, I've got more birds now. I mean, they're eating me out of house and home. I've already went through like a bag and a half of bird seed. So, but it's spectacular just to watch them. And there's one, it's not a household finch, but it's something like that. And he's missing an eye. And so he'll land, and he's the boss of this bird feeder, and he'll land on it. And he has the eye where he's missing back towards the camera so he can keep an eye out, and it's just amazing to have watched him, how he's adapted with his, the issue that he has, missing the eye. And, for his protection, he has that eye towards the camera, and the good eye, is always scouting for, I guess, predators or other birds. But, it's amazing. Like I'll sit there and just watch these guys for forever. So for Christmas, I've requested like 4 birdhouses. And then I'm looking at building a bird bath because I have a pump where it's bigger than kind of what you would normally see, but not deep, just kind of shallow. So, I'm all into it.
I love that. I feel like that's how birding sucks you in.
Oh, it has.
Nobody ever goes into it thinking, I think I'm going to really like being a birder. All I've ever heard is people who go into it being like, birds, and then get totally wrapped up in it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. If you had one day that you could teleport to any other state park, where would you go?
That's a fun one. I really like Dinosaur Valley. For one, because I have my best friends over there, and she's also a big paleontology buff. So we would absolutely go take a look at some dino footprints down there in the river. I just think they're the coolest.
So is she an interpretive ranger?
She's not, actually. We met in college. We both went for anthropology.
Okay.
But she went more towards the physical anthropology side and forensic stuff.
So if you could look at your job as interpretive ranger, what is your favorite part?
Favorite part of the job? I really, really love whenever you get to point out something that people wouldn't even know to look for otherwise. That is the most magical part of the job for me. I love giving tours for that reason, and that's originally how I found my way into parks. I thought for a long time, well, I just want to be a tour guide. So that's what I started doing. And, really, when you point out, a little site or a sign that you would just walk by if you didn't know to look for it, or something like that, it's just so incredible to watch somebody's face go, oh, that is just the coolest thing in the world to me.
All right. If Balmorhea had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh, I imagine, I'm not very musically inclined. I imagine it would be a very kind of 1940s jingle, with some sort of big band music in the background, because it's just such a typical CCC park that that's absolutely what I think whenever I look out.
All right. First off, are you ready for the most important question of the podcast?
All right, let me hear it.
This will give us direction and duration of the podcast. If you get it wrong, no one's ever gotten it wrong before. I don't know what would happen, but I'm just letting you
Oh
know.
no.
What is your favorite of all time Texas hiking podcast that you've been a guest on?
This one.
Yes. I love it. No, it's all joking aside, yeah, it's been a wonderful experience for me, and I thank you so much for coming on the podcast. That wraps up the lightning round. So we are going to dive into everything there is to know about Balmorhea State Park. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. So really kind of before we get into Balmorhea, I think it's important, and the listeners also enjoy it, is to kind of get a little bit of information on you and kind of like how you got into the parks and wildlife, what brought you to Balmorhea, and these types of things. So with that being said, how long have you worked for the Texas Parks and Wildlife?
I've been with TPWD now for it'll be 2 years in February.
Okay. And have you always been at Balmorhea?
I haven't. I've been an interpreter since 2020. And I actually got started up in Montana State Parks, even though I am a born and raised Texan. So
So you were up in Montana?
I was, yeah, during the pandemic.
How were those winters?
They were something. Montana is beautiful and it is so cold. So, you know what? Nobody ever tells you about moving to Montana is that how little light there is in the winter. The days are so short. So you just wind up, there's this moment in February where you go to the store, you go to work or anything, and everybody's just crabby because nobody has enough vitamin D.
So I love this question, and it's funny whether you're a superintendent or a park interpreter. It's everybody has the same answer. So in your role as a park interpreter, what does a typical day look like for you?
It's never the same day twice. There's no such thing as a
Yep.
no. It's true though. So I could say I have a very typical winter day and I have a very typical summer day. Balmorhea is interesting in that we have one peak season. Most parks you'll see a little peak up in spring, and then you'll see another peak up in fall. Balmorhea, it's nothing, 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 summer, and then back to nothing. So we've got, in summer, I am doing programs. I'll do tours. I try to do 2 a day on weekends. We'll have a speaker series. I am running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Like it is so fun. So we've got our big energy summer where everybody is here. And then in the winter, I get to do a lot of research and outreach, and I get to go to schools, and there's a lot more to be done on that front, creating resources, things like that. So in the summer, that is definitely, peak interpreter, that is Park Ranger Barbie is happening. And then in the winter, I become more of, just kind of just researcher for the most part, and doing outreach and tabling, and it's definitely a more zen season.
Nice. So if you look at your time at Balmorhea, what would you say is your most favorite memory or moment there at the park?
I got chased by a javelina.
People don't realize they'll go after you.
They will, especially if it's a mama.
Yep.
So what had happened was that I had just moved to the park, and I had maybe been here for about a month. And at that point, I was taking showers in the pool showers due to some housing fun. And so I was coming in for a shower. I had gotten out. It's dark. It's nighttime. It's February. And I look over and I see this gorgeous moon over the pool, and I'm like, I need that picture. So I walk out, even though your phone never captures it the way that you want to, I'm still sitting there going, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. So I'm up here with my phone taking a picture, and then down at my feet, I hear and Jason, I am in a robe and some flip flops.
Hey.
And they were very squeaky flip flops. So I all the way back to the gate when I finally got it to shut on this Mama Javelina.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, those things are no joke. And where I'm at in hiking, usually every Sunday I'm on the Lone Star Hiking Trail doing certain sections of it. And that's my biggest phobia. And I've not seen a lot, but I've scared a lot of hog. And I know they're two different animals, but they still creep me out. And it's I
Well,
feel you.
I may be an advocate for the javelina. I think they are. To be fair, I almost stepped on that one. So she was totally justified in running after me. But our javelina here at the park, they're very docile. They're pretty. We have very nice javelina for the most part until you're accidentally almost stepping on them. Because she let me get to the point where I was almost stepping on her. So
Yeah. Probably, don't they have pretty bad eyesight?
I couldn't tell you. I imagine that it would be enough.
What is something about your job that you think would shock or surprise our listeners?
The amount of water that we get out of that spring every single day. There is a great joy in being on a tour and asking that question and letting people play Price is Right to try and figure out the number. So I'm going to let you guess.
In gallons or liters?
In gallons.
All right, good. Because I couldn't calculate.
I couldn't tell you either.
I would say in a 24-hour or 12-hour period.
24.
24-hour period. I would say 4,200 gallons of water.
4,200. Try 15 million.
What?
Yeah. So we get 15 million gallons of water up this little spigot in the middle of the desert every day. And that is just an insane number to wrap your head around. The pool itself holds 3.5 million gallons. It's a couple of Olympic-sized swimming pools stacked on itself. So we get enough water to refill the entire pool 4 separate times and some change every day.
Where does that water come from?
Oh, that's my favorite question.
Oh.
So I am a karst limestone aquifer nerd. It's my thing. It's one of the main reasons I took this job because I think it's just the coolest. So underneath our feet, right? Aquifers, we kind of, some people imagine them as these underground lakes or an underground river or something like that. These big pockets where it's just kind of water in itself. But aquifers are more like a sponge. We've got these layers of rock that are more porous than others, and so they soak in the water. And that's why recharge is such a topic, because it takes a hot minute for the water to get into the rock that it'll actually soak into. And because of that, you'll have different layers of rock where you'll have a spongy rock and then like a plate layer, and then a spongy rock and then a plate. So you can have aquifers that sit on top of each other. And here at Balmorhea, we have such interesting water chemistry because we're actually part of a series of 6 springs. The one that feeds our pool is San Solomon Spring, singular. The entire system is San Solomon Springs, plural. So we've got these 6 springs, and each of them has a different water chemistry. So a woman named Rebecca Nuno, she did a pretty in-depth study on all of these different wells in the area, and she pulled the water chemistry And from that and a couple other research papers in the area, we found out that we actually have this mystery water source that we're trying to figure out. It's not located in, so the other springs. So it's kind of just ours, from what I understand. And it's a strontium isotope that was kind of located or found. And that is just so amazing to me, because just down below our feet, there is this whole world. And, we look up, and to me, what it reads as is whenever you're looking at the sky during the day, you just see blue, right? Vision only goes so far, we see the blue. But we know there's stars behind there. We just don't think about them during the day. That's kind of how I feel about the ground, too, where you look down, you see a pretty flower, or you see some dirt, some rocks, cool rocks. And then there's more, though, and there's cooler stuff beyond that too. So we've got this cool system, and our water, some of it we're pulling from the Watts, some of it we're getting recharged from the Davis Mountains. But the majority of our water is coming from the Edwards Trinity Aquifer, which people don't really realize comes this far west. So we share that with Austin and San Antonio, that area. It's a huge collection of water in this limestone down beneath our feet. So that is where we get the majority of that water. But there are also small local aquifers that sit on top. And we're sitting actually right on a fault line. It's inactive, thankfully. But that's what would have cracked this thing open thousands of years ago.
And it's one thing I always wonder is when I go to the Guads, I have tradition. I go visit Jose's grave, and I go to Smith Springs and I drink some of the water, and I just sit there and go, okay, it hasn't rained forever. Where is this water coming from? And it's just constantly just pouring out. And sometimes it's a lot of water and it's flowing pretty good, and sometimes it's not. But yeah, I just find it absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
15 million gallons.
Yes. 15 million. And that's not even its peak. We've seen a gradual decline with development of different kinds. And before that, they were estimating in the 1930s, when this thing was being built, that it would have been closer to 30 million gallons a day. Some of the readings that have been done historically. Yeah.
So as you said a bit ago, that, this spring, this pool, this area is world famous. Can you give us a little bit of information about the history and how it came to be?
Yeah. So the way I like to introduce Balmorhea is, historically, for the majority of the spring's lifespan, as far as it relates to humans, this would have been a gas station in essence. It's a very important site, but not necessarily a sacred one. You wouldn't want it to go away, but it's also not something that you're really going to highly revere, right? We see the most history between the Humanos and the Mescalero Apache. And the Mescalero, they were the last people to freely inhabit the springs. So they were kind of forced to stay at the springs for a while, because their typical MO is they would hang out in New Mexico in the mountains during the summer, where it was a little bit cooler, come back down during the winter, and make their way back up as the year progressed. And we would have been a stop along the way normally, just kind of that gas station vibe. And so that's what it was for a very, very long time. And then, whenever the American Army kind of grabs up the Comanche and forces them to kind of pair up, right? They come through, they push the Mescalero out, and then we just had Anglo settlers from that point. So they would have been the first to dig kind of the first rudimentary canals that we have here, those irrigation canals. And then around the 1920s, there is this group of men. They come out here. There's a little bit of development in the area, but not a ton just yet. And so they notice that there's this spring and that there's all of these canals that are not, that are just kind of managed by the farmers, ranchers themselves. And so they formed the Balmorhea Land and Irrigation Company. And their names, the four men who founded it, were, their last names were Belton, Morrow, and the two Ray brothers. So that's how we get Balmorhea.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why we have that weird name. So they formed the Balmorhea Land and Irrigation Company. They start building out these deeper, more substantial canals. And then later, we get more people into the area. The springs here, which would have been closer to a cienega at the time, just this wild wetland still, it was starting to be used as a swimming hole. And in those days, they actually, the first kind of pool infrastructure we ever had was the locals built this giant high dive right in the middle of the pool. And it was, you look at pictures, it has to be at least 15 feet tall, if not 20. And so there was a lower high dive, and then there was just a ladder, and you could climb that ladder. And that's also at the top of that was a platform, just a small square platform, and you could just jump off of that.
Wow.
So that was where it was starting to get a reputation as this fantastic swimming hole. And that's why it was boosted to the CCC as a project that they should accept. So the CCC, they were here from 1934 to 1938, and they built a ton while they were here. We had company 1856. They also did a ton of work over at Davis Mountains. So if Charlie in his episode talked to you about the CCC, we're talking about the same guys here. So they built the world's largest spring-fed swimming pool. They did all of the landscaping around that. They built all of the roads, all of the bridges. They updid all of the canals, made them huge. They built a residence and a motel and part of the campground in about 2 years, give or take. That was the majority of that building period. You know, there would have been like a planning and a cleanup, but they're right in the middle. It took about 2 years to do all of that. And, you know, if you've ever experienced a West Texas summer, you'll know that, man, those boys were booking and working. So that, I can't imagine being a CCC boy here. So they built up our little park here. We still have a ton of landmarks from the CCC. Our high dive is still original. She's kind of the icon of the park. So that is still a CCC feature that we have. We've just renovated our motel, and it still has a ton of the original CCC features, including some of the original furniture still. So it's something that we're still super excited to see. We have fantastic architecture. We've got all of those gorgeous CCC arches that last so long. The buildings are adobe. It's fantastic. You can just see all of the effort and actual like deep care that was put in, you know?
Wow. I think it was Nikki at Lake Brownwood. You know, she came on the podcast and she was talking about the CCC in the early days of the park. And I believe that she said that they used to rent bathing suits to the to the you know the visitors. So is there any history at Balmorhea that you guys rented bathing suits or not?
You know, I wouldn't know about renting bathing suits. I know that we did have a concessionaire for a very long time. Right now, we're in the process of renovating our group halls so that we could maybe have that happen again. Right now, it's still very CCC era. So that, I'm not saying that it couldn't have been an option. I do believe that at one point we did have a floaty exchange where you could kind of rent out a floaty for the day. I think they did something like that. Yeah. But my favorite thing whenever it comes to the CCC history and kind of early park, on opening day, whenever they were having their big opening ceremony, it was huge. They had 3 baseball games. It extended all the way into Balmorhea, the town, which was also founded by those 4 guys. So that went all the way over there, and they had like 3 baseball games. There was a barbecue. There was a boating competition actually in the pool and over at the lake, and there was a bathing girl review.
Okay.
And I can't remember the original prize money, but I remember looking it up, and in today's money, the winning girl would have won something like $600.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was nothing to sniff at. It was a big deal.
I just thought that was funny that, I could be wrong, but I think it was her that said that they used to, the park used to rent bathing suits, and I just thought that was funny. So, how big is the Balmorhea, the lake itself? So not in the park, but I think it's on down a little bit, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact size. It is significantly bigger than the pool.
Yeah.
But it's still a pretty small reservoir. It's just a little local lake, but it's all the same water. Obviously, our water starts here and it ends there. It doesn't really go anywhere else. A lot of it gets used for irrigation purposes, agricultural use, because the water itself does not actually belong to Balmorhea. That belongs to the groundwater district. So they kind of control who gets what allotments. We're allowed to use a certain portion of it, and we're allowed the use of it in the pool, but we can't, hold it here. Not that we would want to, because that would just mean a flood. But yeah, so the water actually belongs to an entirely different entity. So it flows out of here. It goes through about 3 miles worth of these really beautiful canals and winds up in Balmorhea Lake.
And when you say pool, you don't
Mhm.
mean like a pool. Like there's fish in it. Describe
Yeah.
the pool.
Oh, yes. So the pool is so difficult to describe. And we live in this beautiful halfway point where we're not necessarily an undeveloped pool. We're not just a natural body of water, but we're also not chlorinated and we're not artificially fed. It is a spring fed pool. And so whenever you walk in, if you look at it just from afar, um, it looks like a pool. It looks like a giant, beautiful pool. And then you start getting a little bit closer and you can see that the water is really blue. It looks, you know, tropical. You get closer and then you start seeing maybe one of our turtles sunning on one of the posts in the middle. And so you're swimming around with giant turtles and you get closer and you see schools of these Mexican tetras that are all swimming around being all shiny and cool. And then down beneath that, you get right on the edge and you start to see the smaller fish like the Mexican pupfish, which is one of our endangered species, the Pecos gambusia, our other endangered species of fish. And they're just hanging out on the sides. And it's a living pool. Like I said, you can swim down to the bottom. You can see the sand dancing down there, And then we have a short end where the bottom is concrete, And I actually really like the short end because you can see the fish so clearly. You can get a really good look at things like our catfish that are down in there with you and take a good, nice look. People come to snorkel. People come to scuba dive
Scuba
whenever I
dive.
say the pool is huge, I mean the pool is huge.
Wow. How deep is it?
At the deepest points, it's about 25 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is probably a really dumb question, but what kind of visitors typically come to the park?
Well, obviously we get a lot of swimmers. That's our big one, is especially families in the summer. We have families. We had one this year that had 4 generations with them who had all been coming
Oh,
to the park
wow.
together for that long. So we've got people who have been coming to the park for generations, literally. And then you'll have your people who are just stopping over, This is one of their little stops on the way. Or, we'll have those people like we were talking about earlier. Oh, I saw the sign, just wanted to pop in. And then they wind up seeing one of the coolest little hidden gems in Texas, So we get so many different people, obviously, but the majority of it is, those summer swimmers are just, they come in with really cool stories, and that's the majority of our people. We also get a ton of diving groups who come in from different dive schools, and this is where people learn to dive. So it's amazing, our visibility down there.
No, golly. So I don't know if you can go back and maybe you've heard some stories, and especially like the time that you've been at the park, how have you seen the park evolve over the years?
Whenever I first came in, we didn't have the campground or the motel open. They were both still undergoing renovations. And that was, it took a minute to get over that patch there. Both projects took much longer than anybody had been expecting. And it has been really wonderful to see those open back up. People have such an emotional connection with this park. And that's going to be true for any park. But more than at any other park that I've personally worked at, the personal feelings that people hold towards Balmorhea are so intense. You have these beautiful familial memories with all of these different families. And to not have that piece was really hard, for everybody involved.
No.
So, we just, in my time being here, seeing traditions come back or be invented has been the coolest part of that since I've started at the park. I'm actually the first interpreter that Balmorhea has ever had. So
really?
Yes. So
That's
before
cool.
this, I can't believe that Balmorhea never had an interpreter, because you've got just kind of a built-in audience there in the summer. People are right there. They're already gathered in one spot. All you have to do is say, hey, look at this thing. So I have gotten to see what it's like also for people to not only have that personal connection already with their families, but then get to also really deeply connect with the nature that's here and the conservation side of things. So I have had people on tour that have said, I've been coming here since I was 5 years old and I never knew that, so those moments are so cool. And, there are things where we've had people who have worked at the park for, 25 plus years. And, listening to my coworkers kind of tell me different facets of things about how it used to be, or how, even they experienced the pool whenever they were younger. It is such, we were recently designated as a geoheritage park. And I think that is really a key phrase that we have taken on, because it isn't, you've got parks that are kind of cultural, you've got parks that are more natural in their significance, and then you have parks like Balmorhea, where it is just, they can't be untied, the two. So that is something that makes Balmorhea really special, and that I think brings us a different kind of visitor.
Just doing the research, the park is absolutely fantastic, and I could kick myself for just driving by.
I know.
Talking about like the wildlife that the springs support in the wetlands, that, what were you calling them, that fancy word?
Ciénagas.
Ciénagas. I did learn something today.
There you go.
What kind of wildlife can visitors might see or experience at the park?
Yeah, we are a big birding park, which is why I'm also getting sucked into the birding loop. We have fantastic birds here at Balmorhea because we have that nice stable water source that they're looking for on their migration paths. So we get a ton of migratory birds. Right now, we're seeing our kingfishers. We're also in our season of the blue heron. They're gorgeous. Last year, I think we're going to try and keep on the tradition of naming them. Last year, our heron was named Zeke. This year, our heron is named Zach. I don't know how many Z names we're going to be able to go through. But that is always a joy, is seeing the birds. We've also got our turtles, as mentioned. Right now, we have baby turtles. I mentioned Bertha had that beautiful clutch of eggs. So here at the park, we can keep track of the turtles pretty well. We know which ones are which. There's not actually that many of the big Texas spiny soft shells. So there's Bertha, who is about the size of a beach ball. She's huge. She's our largest turtle. And then a little bit smaller, we have Bert Jr., Bert Jr., and the baby Berts and Berthas. So we have all of these really small, pancake-sized turtles that are hanging out right now. And they are so funny. You'll see them scrabble around and try and hide themselves really badly. They're not good at it yet. So they'll just kind of stick themselves under some chara, which is that aquatic plant that we've got down at the bottom. They'll just kind of stick themselves in, but you can still see their tush hanging out. So they're still learning the ropes.
Yeah.
They're so sweet. And then we've got our really cool little fish. We actually have crawdads over in the Cienegas. And you'll see kind of their little tracks down there in the sand and the mud. And people really love that. That's always fun to see, is all their little doodles down at the bottom. And we do have, which you're not necessarily going to see this, but it is good to know that it's there, one of my favorite animals, which is the diminutive amphipod, which is this teeny tiny little water bug. And it is if you imagine a single grain of white rice, turn that into a shrimp, you have the diminutive amphipod. So they are the smallest amphipod in North America. They are so stinking cute, and they live down under the rocks. So that is their little habitat. So you won't necessarily see them, but I just want you to know that the diminutive amphipod is down there, and they're very cute.
Oh, wow. I thought it was kind of funny. You mentioned it earlier, but just the phrase endangered desert fish. I got a chuckle. So can you talk a little bit about that and what makes them endangered?
Their numbers. Also, they are pretty endemic to a very limited number of locations, of which we are one. So our two endangered fish are the Comanche Springs pupfish, and there's also the Pecos gambusia. So the pupfish, that is actually the only fish that was ever introduced into the system by man. They do stock Balmorhea Lake, but we have a couple blocks in place in the forms of like waterfalls that keep those fish from entering up and into our system. So we don't have any fish that are introduced by man except for the Comanche Springs pupfish. And the reason we have those guys is because of Comanche Springs in Fort Stockton, which used to be one of the largest springs in Texas until it went dry some years ago. And so whenever they noticed that was happening, they took as many of those little fish as they could and they plopped them down in our system. So we now have something called the refugium, which is a fancy word for a man-made aquatic environment that is suited to a specific species or species. So we have this nice, warm, shallow canal that they mainly inhabit now, though they do like to be over in the pool as well. So that refugium, it shoots off of the main outlet canal, and it feeds the Cienegas, which actually had to be restored in the 90s. They weren't there. The CCC had entirely bypassed those Cienegas whenever it put in those deeper canals. So we now have those thanks to a guy called Clark Hubbs, which is one of the Cienegas is named after him. So we have San Solomon Cienega, which is the large one. Then we also have Hubbs Cienega, which is our smaller one. And they are just these little hubs for these little endangered species that now thankfully have even an expanded home now.
Thinking about the fragile ecosystem that you guys support and look after and steward, how do you balance the recreation with also protecting this? And kind of my direction is like, you know, I never even thought about this, but we were, I think, in Mexico somewhere, and they wouldn't let you have a certain sunblock because of the
Yeah.
chemicals. You know, like, so does all that kind of come into play there at the park as well?
That's a really good question. So that is obviously our main kind of job, is to balance between letting people enjoy this resource that has been there for generations and continue their traditions, and for new people to find something that they love, and for people to learn how to dive. And how do we do that and have people how to foster a connection with the resource and have fun with it and enjoy it, and also keep it safe and keep it here, and in as good of a condition as we can. And that's really tough at a park like Balmorhea. I'm not going to lie; it's a lot of number crunching. A lot of the time is, where is our capacity limit? You know, so most recently, one of the things we started doing was we started securing our picnic tables, because we noticed that if we allowed the picnic tables to be moved around too much, it was doing a real number on the grass. And then whenever we get our big monsoons in the fall, all that mud flows right into the water. So it's stuff like that even that you might not think about. We've got a certain number of people that we can allow into the pool every day. And that's a consideration for those endangered species, because this is the only home that they have,
Yeah.
We can have both in moderation. So really what we try to do is, as I've been alluding to, Balmorhea has a very emotional component to it. So really appealing to that is what we try to do. If you love this resource, here's how we keep it here. And we are lucky to have a fantastic supportive community that all want to see it thrive into the future. A lot of the local community here economically really does rely on the spring being here, be that through, agricultural means or through tourism or other. So
Yeah.
we've got people who are relying on us, to keep this going, not just now, but into the future. And that's something that we work with our community to do. We don't want to be the people who stand on high and say, well, we have all the numbers and we have all the scientists, so we obviously know best. That's never the case. So
No.
we always try to get some community input. And that, I think, is something that's really special about Balmorhea, and, having people who have that connection to it, and just expanding that outward to include caring for the beings and the little guys that are here. You can have a personal connection to it. And then once we can get to the point where we all say, okay, no, everything here is important. The ciénagas are important. The fish in the pool are part of what makes it special. I think there are a lot of people like that. And I think that helps us so tremendously to bridge that.
So one thing the listeners know, and I've been harping on it forever, I don't care if no one goes to the state park or it's like yours or Inks Lake or, Government Canyon, some of these uh, Enchanted Rock, always make a reservation. So with that being said, for your park, and let's just talk about the summer. So you guys have a daily capacity where, or a timed entry or something like that you kind of work under?
Yes, we do. So where that kind of gets us is, we have a lot more people who want to see the park than is responsible to allow in per day.
Yeah.
And we know this because in the past, there have been periods where there has not been an entry limit. And you'll have people I've seen pictures where everybody is packed into the pool like sardines. And one, that can't be good for the environment, two, that can't even really be enjoyable for the people at that point. So that's something that we kind of have to feel out year by year. It was going to look different whenever the campground was out of the running. It's going to look, we kind of look at it year by year. And we really try to do our best to make that information as available as possible so that the people who want to get in can get in. And so that people who just see it on their way somewhere don't miss out on a once in a lifetime experience. So yeah, it's something that I would say that that's probably one of the hardest things that is, to feel out as a, park superintendent or as a natural resources manager. There's you do have to balance those things very carefully, especially on that topic. Because like I said, our real strength is whenever people care about it. They can't care about it, connect to it if they can't see it. So that is something that we are constantly working on and trying to get to a better point. At this point, I think we're getting there. I think we've had a lot of community feedback, and we have done a lot of listening over the past year and asking questions, especially now that the overnight accommodations are back up and running. So that has been one of those issues where, we haven't got it perfectly right, but we're really trying. And I feel like that's something that all parks have to feel around too, where it's, at what point does this become detrimental? And at what point will we lose what we love because we're loving it too hard?
Yeah. I think it was also, Nikki, all their cabins are under construction, and she says you can almost walk down there and just feel that the cabins, they're closed, that they're just like a breath of fresh air for them, like, a break, and, because the remodeling and stuff. I mean, they've been going for years without remodeling or just a break. And so it was interesting to get her perspective on that. Sometimes places we love, you can overlove them, and so what was that fancy word again?
Cienegas.
So are there any kind of like hiking trails around there that they can kind of walk, like visitors can walk around, or kind of like, how do you get to them? Are they?
So right now we have a couple paths. I wouldn't necessarily call them trails. You can walk the road, you can walk the canals, you can walk the little trail over to get the Cienegas. It's not that far of a walk. It's really only about a quick, short 5-minute walk from the pool to either Cienega. And they're gorgeous. And you get to say that you've seen this rare resource, but we will be getting hiking trails someday.
Nice.
So we have just, I'm not going to say just, we have acquired a hill. It's called Carpenter Hill. And right now, the public acreage of the park is about 45 acres or so. And that expanded the park to about 750 acres. So,
Jeez.
yeah, we have this hill now. And it's actually so tied to the story of Balmorhea Park, because the CCC, they would have had a flagpole up at the top of it. And somebody had to go up there and raise the flag every single day, take it back down every night. So it's really tied to the park, and we just haven't had that piece for years now. And so that is so exciting. That will be kind of whenever we can get the connecting piece to it, which is what we're missing right now. Once we get that pathway over there, that is going to be where we'll put our first hiking trails, is up Carpenter Hill.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
So I know we kind of touched on it that there is some camping. What camping experiences does Balmorhea offer?
So we have 2 overnight accommodations. We have the San Solomon Motor Courts, and those that's a motel, and it was a motor court whenever the CCC built it. So there would have been garages attached at one point, and they were later converted into kitchens or bathrooms, and they've taken a couple different shapes over the years. But right now, we have a nice, beautiful sitting room with pretty wide windows that you can sit in front of in there, and a little kitchenette. So we've got, or, coffee station, refrigerator, all that. So we have those rooms there. And then we've also got the campground, which can accommodate your big RVs all the way down to tent camping. We've got 34 different spaces.
And is it electric, water hookups, and all that, or more primitive?
It is electric and water, but we do have a dump station.
Okay. All right. So, yes or no? No details needed, because I know about hidden gems, especially when I'm in the quads. I think people need to earn finding the hidden gems. So do you have, if you look at the park and your time at the park, do you have any favorite hidden gems or spots that maybe aren't noticeable to the public, but they're just your spots?
Oh, yes.
All right. like like for me, there's a lot of things in the quads that I found over the years researching and stuff, and I think people need to earn it. So very rarely do I ever share, but sometimes I do. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, they can come give me a ring.
Yeah. So what about, so I was just at Caprock, and they're recognized as the International Dark Sky, or no, not, it was Copper Breaks. And so how is the stargazing opportunities there compared with,
Yeah.
2 other parks?
So we'll see how we compare. We are part of the GBBIDSR, which is a long acronym for a long name, which is the Greater Big Bend International Dark Sky Reserve.
Oh,
Way too
nice.
long of a name. So, but it's a big name because it's a big thing. So it is the size of a small state. So we've got, we're the most northernmost part of that dark sky area. So you drive from Balmorhea, and if you want to get to the southern tip of it, you drive all the way down, you cross into Mexico, you wind up in this different nature preserve. It's shaped like a boot. And once you get to the end of the boot there in Mexico, you have driven 9 straight hours, which is the same thing as driving from where we are in Balmorhea in West Texas all the way over to the eastern side of the state, heading out that way. So it is huge. And so it is, what we do is we are part of what's called a periphery area, and we protect a core area. And our core area is McDonald Observatory. So we sit at about a Bortle scale 4, and we help create the barrier against a lot of the oil field development. So we help create kind of that boundary there. So we have a Bortle scale 4 sky, and we do a ton of night sky programs throughout the year. And I had never really done astronomy before, because all the parks that I had worked at before this didn't really have dark skies, wasn't really the thing, didn't have really wide skies, would have been more mountainous. So whenever I started giving star parties here, I was just absolutely amazed. And, something that has really gotten to me over the past year is I got to see the full moon through a telescope for the first time ever this year. And, you see a lot of cool things as a ranger. It's one of the perks of the job. But that was one of the most jaw-dropping moments of awe that I have had as not only a ranger, but as just kind of a lifelong naturalist, that I just had to stop for a minute in the middle of my program and go, y'all look at that, which I think is the essence of being an interpreter, is that energy and that desire to be like, look at that thing, that's so cool. That was such a cool moment this year. We got to see a fireball meteor that lasted at least 15 seconds. It was insane.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely gorgeous. Lit up the night. Beautiful green streak, just tearing through the sky. It was the coolest. So seeing things like that, I think that, night skies are taken so for granted, right? We get to a place where, the stars are up there. They're cool. They're pretty sometimes, but once you actually start learning them, I feel like it's a lot like birding, where you start picking out the patterns once you know a few of them. And then it's just a deep dive from there, because once you know what you're looking at, whenever you're looking at something really cool, and being able to show people the parts that are cool is so righteous. Like,
and it's funny because I started hitting the quads about maybe 10 years ago. And of course, I've seen stars, and you kind of see some dark skies where, okay, there's more than 10 stars in the sky. But at elevation in the quads, I was floored the first time to experience. And it was funny because I was in a tent and there wasn't a lot. And then I got out of the tent probably about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I've never in my life experienced, like, there were gazillions, bazillions, trillions of stars, and I was hooked. Like,
oh
that
yeah,
was absolutely spectacular.
yes. And there have been times, I don't know if you've gotten this from any of your other podcast guests, but whenever you talked about dark skies, we all wind up having this experience where we're given a program and somebody goes, "What's that weird cloud?" And it's the Milky Way.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody
Yep.
who's never seen it before, at first you don't really know what you're looking at. So I think being able to share and experience those moments of awe with the night sky, they're just on a whole different level.
Absolutely. So, no joking aside for this question, I always joked about the favorite podcast as the most important question, but to me, this next question is the most important.
All right.
And it kind of goes with what you've been talking about, protecting Balmorhea, protecting our state parks. How do you think that visitors can help protect the park when they visit? Like, what's the and maybe it's even if they can't visit. I mean, are there donation possibilities? Are there camp host possibilities? Like, how can the listeners get involved to make sure that Balmorhea is always moving forward and will always be there for future generations?
Yes. So we do have park hosts. We would love park hosts. That program hasn't been open for a very long time, so we don't have kind of our yearly circuit set up. So we always need park hosts, especially in the summer. That's kind of when our peak season hits. And if you are a, a a person who likes to chat, we always need somebody on the gate where, we're catching up with people and having somebody out there. And that is so helpful to have those guys out there. So if anybody wants to be a park host, please, 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 we could absolutely use the help out here. We also, if I could ask one thing of any visitor to the park, if you could just pick up 3 pieces of micro trash, that is our number one. We have families who come in the summer and maybe a little piece of their wrapper gets blown out of their hands. We get a ton of wind out here. So we'll have a lot of these little bits and bobs on the ground, bread twist ties, hair ties, the straw wrappers from Capri Suns. So there is a ton of these teeny tiny little pieces of trash that live down there and that we really don't want getting into the pool. Because one, the catfish they'll eat anything. So we don't want them getting a plastic tummy. But also, we have those diminutive amphipods down at the bottom. We don't want to mess with their biome there at the very bottom of the pool. So that, I would say, is kind of our number one. If everybody could just pick up 3 pieces of micro trash, we would be a world better for it.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. I was so on my trip to Caprock, I stopped off at Lake Brownwood and then Copper Breaks. And at Lake Brownwood, in the campsite, this person before me, or maybe before them, anyway, somebody was at the campsite, and there was probably 80 cigarette butts in the fire pit. And
Oh boy.
so I made a video. You can check it out on Instagram. Like, don't be this person. So, as a
Please.
hiker backpacker, I always have trash bags in the car, because when I go to the Lone Star hiking trail, I think it was Trailhead 9, I have a Subaru Outback. I picked up more trash at the trailhead that I had to lay down the seats because of all the trash.
Oh
So,
gosh.
I picked up all the cigarette butts out of the fire ring. But yeah, I mean, these little microplastics and all these things add up, and they do cause unsafe environments, and for the wildlife, and just also, like, if when you I know I've seen pictures of this park. When you walk in at any of these parks, really, like Lake Brownwood, Caprock, you walk in, and that feeling that you have of amazement and wonder, how would you not want to make it better when you leave? Not the same. Like, I could have walked in and said, "Up, cigarette butts. It was already there, so let's just leave it as is." No, make it better.
Make it better.
Hashtag make it better.
Yes. Hashtag make it better, especially for the catfish. They've got
Yes.
they need all the help they can get. They are absolute sillies. I told you earlier they get the zoomies really bad. They get this big burst of energy in the morning, but they will get so wound up sometimes playing tag, swimming in circles, that more than once I have seen one ram headfirst into the side of the canal because they're just that excited to be alive that morning. So, the catfish need all the help they can get. They don't know how to make good food choices.
No. So yeah, I made a video, and I don't know, probably got 3 likes or something, but yeah, it's just, and man, you get me in the quads, and I see orange peels on the ground. Oh, man.
And it's biodegradable.
No, it ain't. It's not. It's going to turn
I
into
know,
leather,
yeah,
and it'll
that's
be
what
there
you hear all
forever.
the time. Yeah.
Now, if you want to throw an orange peel out and you're in Florida in an orange orchard, man, have at it. But oh, that really gets me.
Yeah.
And then the people at the trailhead with dogs, and they pick up the poo and they leave the poo at the trailhead. Like, come on. All right, we'll be here all day talking about these pet peeves. But last 2 questions.
Yes.
What do you hope people take away after visiting Balmorhea State Park?
I hope they take away a deep appreciation for our water. You know, there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about water in Texas right now, as there should be. And if you take nothing away from Balmorhea, then I want you to take the feeling you get seeing that much water come out of the ground, knowing that it's at half of what it could be. I think that is so important to realize, because it's so easy to look at it and go, wow, that's a big number, without realizing the things that we haven't seen in the past, and what our water capacity could be. And there's a lot of doomsday talk about water, but y'all, if we get it through now, if we start making changes now, it is not hopeless. It is not. And I want people to know that. And I want people to know that this is still something we can do something about. It is not an unfixable problem. It's not as easy as light pollution, just flipping a switch off. That one's always going to be the easiest. But we have things we can do, and it's going to be okay as long as we act. So you can't just sit by, do nothing. But I very much want to impress upon people that there is so much doom and gloom, and there is so much that we're pressed through with just bad news these days. And this is something where we can still act, we can still do, and it can still be okay. We just all have to pitch in, and we have to make some changes.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Absolutely. All right. I preach on. That's all I got to say. Last question. This is your time to sell the park. And I know we've talked about how spectacular it is, but we're at a used car dealership, and I'm thinking about, do I walk away or buy this car? Sell me. Make sure that to our listeners that Balmorhea State Park is going to be on their bucket list. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, hit it.
Have you ever listened to Caribbean Blue by Enya?
I don't know.
Do after this.
Okay.
That's what it feels like when you're in the pool. It is so tranquil, and it's the closest you're ever going to get to being a mermaid,
Okay.
For those of us who like that sort of thing. It is amazing. You swim down there, and you'll have the Mexican tetras. They swim with you. They'll hang out around you, and they'll follow you. The water, we have 80 feet of visibility, so you can see all around you. Bring your goggles, It's incredible. It's some of the clearest water you're going to get out here. There's that 15 million gallons comes out. So refreshing in the summer. And then if you come in October, which like I said is my favorite, the air temperature and the water temperature are closer. So it's not even that jarring whenever you get into the pool, you get out of the pool. It's fantastic. So we have all these little critters who are living out their lives. And then you see the pupfish, and the pupfish, they are so tough for a little fish that's this big. If you doodle a fish in your mind, they're an inch long. Just doodle a fish in your mind. You've pictured a pupfish. They're very fish looking. They're very round. So they are so cute looking, and they will pop another pupfish up and out of the water about 6 inches whenever they encroach on their territory. So they are tough little fish. And so you'll get to see them protecting their eggs. They're so cute. They're so mean. They're so menacing, even though they're teeny tiny. And then you'll see the catfish that are hanging out. And their scientific name is Ictalurus lupus, which translates to fish, cat, wolf. So they are very dog-like for a catfish. And they are so fun to watch and see and swim with. And you'll sit down in there, and they'll brush up against your foot. They are so friendly. And then you walk out, you get to see some really beautiful, rare wetlands that you wouldn't see anywhere else. And what makes a cienega is that it has water in it throughout the entire year, which usually means that they are attached to a spring like we are. So we have these beautiful desert wetlands and all of these spectacular birds that rely on them. And you can hear them singing in the morning. You get some gorgeous daylight, and then you get the sunsets. And that's where I'll end on, because if you've ever seen a West Texas sunset, they are on a whole different level. You get these technicolor pinks and reds and oranges and purples over there on, just right over the pool. And it is an incredible sight to see. And I think you should see it.
Yeah, and first off, sold. I'll be there. And yeah, I mean, like, to be able to
Also, sorry,
witness.
I didn't even say this. World's largest spring-fed swimming pool. You get brownie points for that.
Yeah, and how often you get to swim or look at or see endangered species, like, like you can take
Yeah.
part in experiencing that, and then also picking up trash and saving, protecting it for future generations. So,
Yes, and thank you for being a big proponent of that and for doing that trailhead and those cigarette butts. It is more of a help than you think. So,
oh, absolutely. And yeah, so you sold me. I will never pass that park up again. I am turning, exiting, turning left from I-10
yes, you at least
and
have to
heading
stick
down
your
there.
feet in, you know? That's what
Oh,
I say to
absolutely.
people.
Absolutely. I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. It was very informative. It's been an awesome uh, experience meeting you and to hear about the park. And man, am literally, when I was researching it and then hear you talk about the park, like, I cannot believe that I did not just turn off and just go head out for, even if it's just for an hour or two. It doesn't have to be something crazy, but hey, I greatly appreciate it. I know you all are busy. And again, I can't thank you enough. And I hope you had a fun time. And definitely, if there's anything going on in the park that you feel that the listeners need to know, hear about, let me know. And you are always welcome to come back on the podcast.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jason. You know, you are so welcome to visit whenever you feel like it, as is anybody else that is listening. If y'all have ever passed by Balmorhea and thought, maybe later, come on, we've got some cool stuff. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And to the listeners, no more later. That's another hashtag. No more later.
Hashtag no more
Do it
later.
now. That's right.
Balmorhea now.
That's right. Hey, I like that one. All right. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today, and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.